The night air along Colfax Avenue was sharp and cold, the kind that crept under thin jackets and settled in the bones. Naomi sat inside her old car, parked beside a row of flickering streetlights. The seatbelt buckle dug into her side as she tried to rest, but the hunger in her stomach kept her awake. It had been 3 days since she'd lost her job at the laundry shop, and she hadn't told anyone. There was no one to tell. Outside, the city hummed quietly. Neon lights reflected off puddles from a light drizzle. Naomi stared at the half-empty bottle of water on the dashboard and whispered, "Tomorrow will be better." She didn't know if she believed it, but saying it made the silence feel less heavy. When morning came, the sound of car doors slamming pulled her out of a shallow sleep. Her neck was stiff. She rubbed her eyes, straightened her hair, and stepped out into the street, shivering as the wind brushed past. Across from where she parked stood a small neighborhood restaurant called Colfax Hearth. The smell of fresh bread drifted through its half-open door. Naomi had never eaten there. It was the kind of place where people ordered coffee in real mugs and talked about their weekend plans. She was about to walk away when she noticed a little girl standing on the sidewalk, clutching her throat. The child's face was turning pale. A woman nearby screamed, "She can't breathe! Somebody help!" Without thinking, Naomi ran forward. The girl's hands trembled as her breathing grew shallow. Naomi's eyes darted around until she spotted a small red box fixed to a light pole, one of those public emergency kits she'd seen downtown. She broke it open, pulled out the EpiPen, and knelt beside the child. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice calm though her hands were shaking. "Hold still for me." She pressed the injector against the girl's thigh, waited, then pulled it away. The little girl gasped, coughed, and finally took in a shaky breath. Her mother burst into tears, hugging her child tightly. The crowd had gathered, phones out, some filming, most frozen. Naomi stepped back, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. A man in a white chef's jacket came rushing out of the restaurant, his face pale. "What happened?" he asked breathlessly. Naomi recognized him from the restaurant window. He was the owner, the man whose picture hung on the wall near the door. "She had an allergic reaction," Naomi explained softly. "She's okay now." The man looked at his daughter, then back at Naomi. Gratitude and disbelief filled his eyes. "You saved her," he said quietly. "You just saved my little girl." Naomi shook her head. "I only did what anyone would do." But he knew that wasn't true. Most people had stood frozen, afraid to act. This woman had stepped forward without hesitation. "What's your name?" he asked. "Naomi," she said. "I'm Ethan," he replied, still catching his breath. "Please, come inside. You look like you haven't eaten." Naomi hesitated, glancing at her car. The thought of warmth, of something freshly cooked, made her throat tighten. Slowly, she nodded. As she followed him through the restaurant doors, she felt the sudden rush of heat and the comforting smell of food. She had no idea that this simple act, stepping forward when others didn't, would change the entire course of her life. But Ethan didn't know yet that what came next would change everything. Inside Colfax Hearth, the warmth felt almost unreal. The hum of the kitchen, the clinking of pans, the soft chatter from a few early customers. It was a different world from the cold street Naomi had slept on just hours earlier. Ethan led her toward a small table near the counter. "Sit down," he said gently. "You look like you've been out there all night." Naomi gave a faint smile. "I've had better nights," she said, her voice low. He went into the kitchen, spoke briefly to one of the cooks, and returned with a bowl of oatmeal topped with sliced fruit. "It's not fancy," he said, setting it in front of her, "but it's warm." Naomi's eyes glistened. "Thank you," she whispered, trying not to eat too quickly. Ethan watched her for a moment. There was something in the way she carried herself, quiet, respectful, and grateful. That caught his attention. When she finished, he asked, "Do you work around here?" "I used to," she said softly. "Laundry shop on 5th. They let me go last week." He nodded, then hesitated. "We're short-staffed today. If you're willing, I could use an extra pair of hands in the kitchen. It's nothing big, just some prep work. I'll pay you for the day." Naomi's face lit up. "Are you sure?" Ethan smiled. "I'm sure." And just like that, her life shifted again. She washed her hands, tied on an apron, and stepped into the kitchen. The air was thick with the smell of butter and garlic. Steam rose from a pot near the stove, and the sound of chopping filled the room. Naomi felt nervous but focused. She followed every instruction carefully, organizing vegetables, wiping counters, keeping her space neat. Then a woman with sharp eyes and a clipboard walked in. She wore her hair pulled tight and carried the kind of authority that made everyone stand up straighter. "Naomi, this is Marla," Ethan said. "She's our shift manager." Marla gave a curt nod. "You knew?" "Just helping for the day," Naomi replied politely. Marla looked her up and down, unimpressed. "Let's keep it that way," she muttered, then walked off toward the storage area. Ethan didn't hear it, but Naomi did. She kept her head down and worked quietly, pretending not to notice the sidelong looks from Marla. Still, as the hours passed, a few of the cooks began to smile at her. She was fast, clean, and didn't complain. When lunch rush hit, Naomi carried trays, wiped tables, and fetched whatever the chefs needed. At one point, a bag of almond flour fell from the top shelf. Naomi quickly picked it up and checked the label before storing it. "Contains nuts," she read aloud to herself, then placed it in the allergen bin, the one clearly marked in red. Marla saw her and frowned. "You don't need to touch that," she snapped. "We have a system here. I just didn't want it mixed with." "I said leave it," Marla cut in, her tone sharp enough to make Naomi step back. The kitchen went silent for a second. Then Ethan's voice broke through from across the line. "Everything okay?" Marla forced a smile. "All good," she called back. Naomi swallowed hard and nodded, pretending nothing had happened, but she could feel the tension building. Small, quiet, and dangerous, like a flame under dry wood. As the day ended, Ethan handed Naomi an envelope. "It's not much," he said, "but you earned it." Naomi looked at the money as if it were gold. "Thank you, sir. I really appreciate this." "Call me Ethan," he said with a kind smile. "And if you're free tomorrow, come back. We'll find something for you." She nodded, trying not to tear up. For the first time in days, she felt useful again. When she left that night, the cold didn't bite as sharply. The lights along Colfax seemed softer, kinder, she whispered to herself. Maybe this time things will be different. But inside the restaurant, Marla stood by the walk-in cooler, her arms crossed, eyes narrowing toward the window where Naomi had just disappeared into the street. And she had no idea that the next morning would start the fire that changed everything. Morning light spilled through the front windows of Colfax hearth as Naomi tied her apron and tucked a few loose strands of hair behind her ear. She was early again. The kitchen still smelled faintly of last night's bread, and for a moment she let herself breathe in the calm before the rush began. Ethan arrived a few minutes later, greeting the crew with his usual quiet warmth. "Good morning, team," he said, setting down his coffee. When he noticed Naomi, he smiled. "You're back." "I said I would be," she replied with a small grin. Marla, who had been flipping through the schedule at the counter, looked up. "I didn't know she was permanent staff now," she said, her tone carrying a blade under the sweetness. Ethan didn't catch it. "We'll see how it goes. She's been helpful." Then he turned to Naomi. "You can handle the prep table today. Just make sure everything's labeled right for the lunch crowd." Naomi nodded, careful and focused. She checked every ingredient, separating the allergens into their bins. Marla passed by, watching closely, her clipboard clutched like a weapon. The hours moved fast. The restaurant filled up, the air thick with the clatter of plates, and the rhythm of orders shouted over the grill. Naomi worked quickly, washing, chopping, cleaning. She barely noticed when Marla stepped away to answer a phone call near the back office. That was when it happened. A waiter rushed into the kitchen, holding a plate. "Table 7 says their kid just had a reaction. Peanut allergy." Ethan's face drained of color. "What?" The kitchen froze. Naomi looked at the plate, then at the sauce container beside her. She knew she hadn't used anything wrong. The red labeled bin was still sealed. Marla stormed back in, eyes wide. "Who plated this?" No one answered. Then her gaze fell on Naomi. "You were handling the sauces," she said sharply. Naomi shook her head. "No, ma'am. I only refilled the tray from the labeled bin." Marla crossed her arms. "Then explain why there's a trace of peanut oil in that dish. Are you saying everyone else is lying?" Naomi's throat went dry. Maybe the spoon." "Enough," Marla cut in. "Ethan, she's new. She doesn't know the system. I told you this would happen." Ethan rubbed his temples, torn between logic and panic. The little boy in the dining room was stable but shaken. His parents were furious, and now a customer had posted an online review within minutes. "Allergy nightmare at Colfax hearth." By evening, the review had spread on local pages. Ethan's phone buzzed nonstop. He sat in his office staring at the screen, his shoulders tense. When Naomi knocked on the door, he didn't look up. "Come in," he said quietly. "I just wanted to say I didn't do anything wrong," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "I followed every label. I checked twice." Ethan sighed. "I believe you tried your best, Naomi, but the inspector's coming this week. I can't take chances." Naomi's heart sank. "You're sending me home?" "Just until we sort this out." He paused, softer now. "It's procedure." She nodded, trying to stay composed. "I understand." As she untied her apron and walked out, a few of the cooks lowered their eyes, too nervous to speak. Marla stood near the sink, her arms folded, satisfaction flickering across her face like a shadow. Naomi stepped outside into the crisp evening air. The restaurant lights glowed behind her, but she couldn't bring herself to look back. She whispered to herself, "I did everything right." And yet, for the second time in her life, she was being blamed for something she didn't do. But what she didn't know was that the truth was already sitting quietly inside that kitchen, waiting to surface in the most unexpected way. The next morning, Naomi showed up at Colfax Hearth, even though she wasn't on the schedule. She stood outside the restaurant for a while, watching through the glass as the staff moved around inside. Her hands tightened around the strap of her worn-out bag. She knew she shouldn't be there, but something in her heart wouldn't let her stay away. She finally gathered her courage and stepped inside. The usual warmth of the place felt colder now. Conversations quieted as she walked past the counter. Ethan was at the back, speaking to Marla, who stood with her arms crossed and that same tight smile on her face. When Ethan saw Naomi, his expression softened. But before he could speak, Marla interrupted. "Naomi, what are you doing here? You're not scheduled. We talked about this." Naomi swallowed hard. "I just wanted to clear my name. I didn't use anything that could have caused that reaction. I checked every label, every spoon." Marla's voice grew sharper. "The review's still online. The inspection's tomorrow. We don't need any more drama." "I'm not here to cause trouble," Naomi said quietly. "I just want to see the ingredient logs. Please, I just need to make sure." Ethan hesitated, looking between them. "Marla, show her the logs. Let's just end this." Marla's jaw tightened. "They're already filed. You don't need to see them." "Why not?" Naomi asked, her voice steady now. "If they clear my name, why hide them?" The kitchen had gone completely silent. A few of the cooks pretended to keep working, but their eyes flickered toward the confrontation. Marla turned away. "Enough! You're done here. Pack your things." Ethan tried to calm the tension. "Marla, maybe—" But she raised her voice. "No, Ethan. We gave her a chance, and look what happened. You want to lose another customer because of her?" Naomi felt her chest tighten. "Please don't do this," she whispered. "I've worked hard every day. You saw me." Marla's expression softened for a brief second before hardening again. "This isn't personal. It's business." Ethan looked pained but finally nodded. "Maybe it's best if we take a break, Naomi, just until the inspection's over." There it was again, those words that always came right before everything disappeared. "Take a break. It's just business. You'll understand." Naomi untied her apron slowly and placed it on the counter. She looked around the kitchen, the pots, the shelves, the smell of fresh herbs that used to bring her comfort. "Thank you for the chance," she said softly. When she stepped outside, the afternoon sun hit her face, too bright to look at. She crossed the street and walked back toward the spot where her car was parked. It wasn't much, just a beat-up silver sedan, but it was all she had left. She sat inside, resting her head on the steering wheel. The sound of traffic faded into the background. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then her eyes drifted toward the small notebook lying on the passenger seat, the same one she'd used to take notes from the free first aid class months ago. She flipped it open, and tucked inside was an old flyer from the community center. Basic food safety and allergen awareness training, free for local workers. Her finger paused on the words, allergen awareness. She remembered how the instructor had once said, "Always trust the evidence. Kitchens don't lie. People do." Naomi sat up slowly. Her eyes shifted toward the restaurant in the distance. Somewhere inside that kitchen was the proof she needed, the real story behind what happened. She whispered to herself, "If I don't find it, no one will." And as the sun dipped lower over Denver, Naomi started her car, determination replacing the tears that had refused to stop. She didn't know it yet, but that quiet drive down Colfax Avenue was the beginning of everything that would soon come to light. The evening air along Colfax carried the smell of rain and roasted coffee from a nearby shop. Naomi parked her car a few blocks from the restaurant and sat quietly, watching the soft glow of Colfax hearth from a distance. She wasn't there to cause trouble. She just needed answers. Inside her bag was the same little notebook she had carried everywhere. Its pages were filled with scribbles from her old safety class. Cross-contamination, food storage, allergen labels. She turned to a page she'd once highlighted in blue ink. Always record who opens and closes each ingredient bin. The kitchen tells its own story. That sentence would not leave her head. She took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, and walked toward the alley behind the restaurant. Through the kitchen window, she could see shadows moving inside. Marla checking the inventory, a few cooks cleaning the counters. The restaurant was closing for the night. Naomi waited until most of the lights went out. Then, as one of the dishwashers left through the side door, she called out softly, "Hey, Sam." The young man stopped, surprised. "Naomi, you're not supposed to be here." "I know," she said. "I just need one thing. Please, do you still have the old ingredient logs from the night of the allergy complaint?" Sam looked uneasy. Marla said to toss them once the inspection was announced. "Did you?" Naomi asked, her voice gentle but firm. He hesitated. "No, I kept a copy. I just didn't want anyone to get in trouble." Naomi's heart lifted. "Can I see them?" Sam glanced back toward the kitchen door. "Come on, make it quick." They stepped inside quietly. The air smelled faintly of bleach and lemon. Sam pulled out a thin folder from a drawer near the sink. "Here, this is from that week." Naomi flipped through the sheets until one line made her stop. The column for allergen bin, opened by, listed Marla's name and the timestamp just an hour before the incident. Her breath caught. So she opened it, not me. Sam nodded slowly. "I thought that was strange too, but I didn't say anything. She's my manager." Naomi ran her fingers over the paper. It wasn't just proof. It was the missing piece of her story. But one log wasn't enough. She needed something no one could deny. She looked toward the far corner of the room where a small security camera blinked above the cooler door. "Sam, do those cameras still record?" He nodded. "Every night. Footage gets saved for 2 weeks." Naomi closed the folder carefully and handed it back. "Then maybe the kitchen really can tell the truth." Sam frowned. "Naomi, if Marla finds out I helped..." "She won't," Naomi said softly. "I just need to talk to Ethan. He deserves to know what really happened." Outside, thunder rumbled across the Denver skyline. Naomi pulled her jacket tighter and walked back to her car. The folder's image still burned into her mind. It wasn't much. A single timestamp, a name, a quiet truth hiding on a sheet of paper. But it was enough to keep her hope alive. As raindrops began to fall against the windshield, she whispered to herself, "The kitchen doesn't lie." She didn't realize that at that very moment, Ethan was sitting in his office staring at the same review that had started it all. And tomorrow, when she walked back through those doors, nothing would ever be the same again. Because the person she thought might fire her was already starting to question everything he'd been told. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the sky was still gray. The kind of gray that made everything feel heavier than it was. Naomi sat in her car outside Colfax hearth, holding a folded piece of paper in her hands. It was the copied log from the night of the incident. Marla's name, written clearly beside the timestamp. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of the customers that day. The panic in Ethan's voice, the way Marla had looked at her when everything went wrong. It still hurt, but she wasn't there for revenge. She just wanted to be heard. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of the car and walked toward the restaurant. Her shoes crunched over small puddles as she approached the back door. Ethan was already inside, standing near the counter with his sleeves rolled up. He looked tired, not angry, not cold, just tired. When he saw her, his brows lifted. "Naomi," he said quietly, "you shouldn't be here." "I know," she said, clutching the paper, "but I found something you need to see." He studied her for a moment, then motioned toward his office. "Come in." Inside, the office smelled faintly of coffee and paper receipts. Naomi placed the log on his desk. "This is from the night of the allergy complaint. Sam had a copy. I think you should read it." Ethan scanned the page, his eyes narrowing as he reached the line she'd circled. "Marla opened the allergen bin an hour before service," he read aloud. Naomi nodded. "I never touched that container. She told me to leave it alone." He leaned back in his chair, silent for a long moment. "You're sure about this?" "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't," Naomi said. "I know it looks bad, but I followed every rule you gave me." Ethan's jaw tightened, not at her words, but at the thought of what they implied. "There's only one way to know for sure," he said finally. "The kitchen camera." Naomi's heart skipped. "Does it still have the footage?" If Marla didn't delete it, yes. Everything's stored on a cloud drive for 2 weeks. He turned on his computer, clicking through folders until a long list of dates appeared. "Here," he murmured, opening the file from the night in question. The screen flickered, showing the kitchen in grainy black and white. They watched in silence as the video played. Naomi stood at her prep station, focused and steady. Then, nearly an hour earlier, Marla appeared, moving fast, opening the allergen cabinet, taking out a large container, and setting it down on the prep table. She peeled off the label and tossed it in the trash. Ethan froze the frame. The camera caught everything. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Naomi felt tears gather in her eyes. "I told you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I told you I didn't do it." Ethan exhaled slowly, guilt washing over his face. "I should have listened to you," he said quietly. "I'm sorry, Naomi." She shook her head. "You were trying to protect your business. I understand." He glanced back at the screen, the truth staring at them in black and white. She risked the health of a child and let you take the fall. Naomi didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to cry, but part of her just felt empty. Like her heart was catching up to something her mind had known all along. Ethan turned to her, his voice firm now. "I'll handle this. You did nothing wrong. I want you to come back." Naomi hesitated. "After everything?" "Yes," he said softly, "because you're the kind of person this place needs." For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe. She reached for the doorknob, ready to step out, but Ethan called after her. "Naomi," he said, holding up the printed log. "Keep this copy, you earned it. Proof matters." She smiled faintly, nodding. "Thank you." As she left the office, sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time that day, pouring through the restaurant's front windows. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread again, and for a fleeting moment, it almost felt like peace. But outside, in the parking lot, Marla was standing by her car, phone pressed to her ear, her eyes sharp and restless. She hadn't seen the footage yet, but something in her gut told her the truth was coming. And when it did, no one inside that kitchen would ever see each other the same way again. The next day, the restaurant buzzed with quiet tension. Word had spread that the city health inspector was coming earlier than expected. Everyone moved faster than usual, wiping down counters, checking labels, double wrapping containers. But beneath the noise, something heavier lingered. Naomi stood near the prep table, her apron tied tight, her hair pulled back neatly. She was back on the schedule that morning. Ethan had insisted, but she could still feel the eyes on her. Some were warm, relieved to see her return. Others cautious. Marla walked in 10 minutes late, holding a coffee she didn't drink. Her face was pale but composed, the kind of calm that comes before a storm. When she saw Naomi, she froze for half a second, then forced a tight smile. "You're back," she said flatly. Naomi nodded. "Ethan asked me to help with the prep for the inspection." Marla's lips twitched. "How thoughtful of him." Before Naomi could respond, Ethan came out of his office holding a small USB drive in his hand. "Marla," he said, his voice steady but firm. "We need to talk." She blinked. "Now? We're about to open." "This won't take long." He motioned toward the small meeting space near the back of the kitchen. A few of the staff exchanged glances, their movements slowing as they watched the three of them walk in. Inside, Ethan plugged the drive into a laptop sitting on the counter. The screen flickered to life, the same footage Naomi had seen the day before. "Do you recognize this?" he asked quietly. Marla looked at the screen, her jaw tightening. "What is this supposed to prove?" Ethan didn't answer. He pressed play. The video showed her clearly, opening the allergen cabinet, removing the container, and peeling off the label before tossing it into the trash. Her own handwriting flashed briefly across the screen as the timestamp appeared. Naomi stood silently beside the door, her heart pounding so hard she thought they might hear it. Marla's voice cracked first. "That's not what it looks like," she said, stepping closer. I was reorganizing the bins. I must have..." Ethan stopped her. "Marla, the allergy complaint happened less than an hour later. You removed a label and never replaced it. You let Naomi take the blame." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her face went pale. "I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt," she finally whispered. "It was just, I was rushing. The inspector, I panicked." Ethan's voice dropped. You could have ruined someone's life. You almost did." The room fell silent. Even the hum of the fridge seemed distant. Naomi didn't say anything. She wasn't angry. She was just tired. Tired of defending herself. Tired of being seen as the mistake someone else could afford to make. Marla turned to her. "Naomi, I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't think." Naomi met her eyes calmly. "You didn't think because you didn't have to. People like me, we don't get second chances when things go wrong." For a moment, Marla looked as if she might cry, but then the sound of the front door opening broke the stillness. The health inspector had arrived. Ethan straightened, slipping the drive into his pocket. "You can go," he said quietly. Marla blinked. "What?" "You're dismissed, effective immediately." He didn't raise his voice, but the finality in his tone cut deeper than anger ever could. Marla nodded slowly, her hands trembling as she removed her name tag. She walked past Naomi without another word, her footsteps fading down the hallway. When the door closed, Ethan turned to Naomi. "You okay?" She nodded, though her eyes shimmered. "It's strange," she said softly. "I thought I'd feel happy, but I just feel sad." Ethan gave a small, understanding smile. That's what good people feel when justice is done. He took a breath, then opened the door to greet the inspector. The kitchen team straightened, ready to face whatever came next. For Naomi, it wasn't about clearing her name anymore. It was about what came after. About standing up, not just surviving. As the inspector shook Ethan's hand, Naomi glanced at the kitchen camera above the cooler. The little red light blinked steadily, quiet but constant. A reminder that sometimes truth doesn't shout. It just waits, patient and steady, for someone brave enough to look for it. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, Naomi realized she was finally free. The health inspector's visit lasted most of the morning. Every drawer, every label, every log was checked twice. The staff moved like clockwork, answering questions, showing their procedures, staying polite but nervous. Ethan stayed close, calm and steady, his eyes meeting Naomi's every so often with quiet reassurance. Naomi worked carefully at her station, measuring ingredients, sealing containers, making sure every bin had the right tag. It wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about doing her job the way she'd always believed it should be done. When the inspector finally set his clipboard down, the kitchen fell silent. "Your allergen labeling is consistent," he said. "Good storage practices. The incident last week seems to have been human error, but the corrective steps are clear." He paused, glancing toward Naomi. "I'm impressed by the organization here. Whoever redid these logs knew exactly what they were doing." Ethan smiled slightly. "That would be Naomi." The inspector nodded. "Keep her around. Every restaurant could use someone like that." As soon as the door closed behind him, the room erupted in relief. A few cooks clapped softly, someone laughed, and the tension that had hung over the place for days finally broke apart. Naomi stood frozen, her eyes glistening. Ethan walked over and said quietly, "We're cleared, not even a fine." She exhaled, almost laughing through her tears. "You mean we passed?" "Better than passed," he said. "We rebuilt trust today, thanks to you." Naomi shook her head. "I just wanted to do what's right." "That's exactly why you're special," Ethan replied. The next few days felt different. Customers started coming back. Some even mentioned they'd seen the updated post on the restaurant's page, the one where Ethan publicly thanked a brave member of our team for protecting the integrity of Colfax Hearth. He didn't name her, but everyone in the kitchen knew. Marla didn't return. The crew adjusted quickly, a little quieter at first, a little more careful, but lighter somehow. And in the middle of it all, Naomi found her rhythm again. One afternoon, as she wiped down the counter, Ethan called her into his office. A manila envelope sat on his desk. "You've been through a lot," he said. "You've shown strength, grace, and skill. So, I made some calls." He handed her the envelope. Inside was a letter with the logo of Denver Community College, acceptance into a culinary training program, tuition sponsored by a local scholarship fund. Naomi stared at the letter, speechless. I don't understand." "I reached out to a few people," Ethan said, smiling. "They heard your story. They wanted to help." Tears filled her eyes. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," he said gently, "but sometimes people like you just need someone to open a door." Naomi looked down at the paper again. For years, she'd dreamed of something like this, but never believed it could actually happen. She folded the letter carefully, her hands trembling. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," he said softly. by never giving up. That evening, as the sun dipped low over Colfax Avenue, Naomi stood outside the restaurant and watched the streetlights flicker on one by one. The city looked softer now, less cruel. She thought about everything that had happened, the cold nights in her car, the humiliation, the fear, the quiet moments where she almost gave up. And yet here she was, still standing, still herself. She whispered to the fading sky, "Thank you for not letting me break." Behind her, the glow of Colfax hearth spilled through the windows, warm and alive again. Inside, laughter echoed from the kitchen, and for the first time, Naomi felt that she truly belonged. But she didn't know yet that the real beginning of her story was still waiting just around the corner. The first day of culinary school felt like stepping into another world. The building smelled of coffee, fresh bread, and ambition. Students in white coats rushed through the halls carrying trays of ingredients, their laughter bouncing off the tiled walls. Naomi stood by the entrance, clutching her worn notebook, the same one that had once sat on the seat of her old car on Colfax Avenue. She was nervous, but it wasn't fear this time. It was something gentler, a kind of awe. Her instructor, a tall woman with gray streaks in her hair and kind eyes, greeted her warmly. "Naomi Tran, welcome. You're our scholarship student, right?" Naomi nodded shyly. "Yes, ma'am." The woman smiled. "I have heard good things about you. The restaurant you worked for speaks very highly of your discipline." Naomi blinked, surprised. "You talked to Ethan?" "Of course, he couldn't stop bragging," the instructor said with a laugh. "Said you saved his kitchen." Naomi laughed softly, shaking her head. "He saved me too." Over the next few weeks, she threw herself into the work, measuring, tasting, burning, fixing, learning. Every mistake felt like progress, every lesson like a small victory. She stayed late most evenings, long after the others had gone home, determined to understand every recipe, every rule. Sometimes when she cleaned up alone, she'd think back to that night on Colfax. The sound of sirens, the little girl gasping for air, the cold seat of her car. It felt like a lifetime ago. One afternoon, near the end of class, the instructor placed a stack of papers on her desk. "These are for the community project," she said. "We're partnering with local shelters to teach basic cooking and food safety. Volunteers only, but I think it'd be perfect for you." Naomi's heart lifted. "I'd love to help." That weekend, she stood in a small kitchen at a neighborhood church, surrounded by people who reminded her of her old self. Tired, uncertain, just trying to get through the day. She showed them how to wash hands properly, how to store leftovers safely, how to make soup with whatever they had. "Cooking isn't just about recipes," she told them. "It's about believing you can make something good out of whatever life gives you." The group nodded, and a quiet warmth spread through the room. For the first time, Naomi realized she wasn't just learning to cook. She was learning to teach, to give back what she'd once needed most, a sense of purpose. Later that night, she walked home through the cool Denver air. Streetlights shimmered on the wet pavement, and the city hummed softly around her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "Proud of you. The restaurant misses you. Stop by when you can." Naomi smiled at the screen. She typed back, "I will. Thank you for everything." When she reached her apartment, a small studio she could finally afford, she placed her acceptance letter and culinary badge side by side on the table. For a long moment, she just looked at them. This was what starting over looked like. Not a fairy tale, not an overnight miracle, just steady, honest work and the courage to keep showing up. As she turned off the light, she whispered to herself, "Every meal has its beginning. This is mine." Outside, the city lights blinked gently, as if nodding in agreement. And for the first time in her life, Naomi didn't feel like she was surviving anymore. She was truly living. A year had passed since that cold night on Colfax Avenue. The city felt different now. Or maybe Naomi did. The same streets that once looked like endings now looked like beginnings. Every morning, she caught the bus downtown, her backpack filled with recipes, notebooks, and the quiet pride of someone who had rebuilt her life from almost nothing. Her days were full. Classes, volunteer programs, and part-time shifts at Colfax Hearth, where the smell of roasted garlic and warm bread still greeted her like an old friend. Ethan often said the restaurant had changed because of her, but Naomi knew the truth. She had changed first. That afternoon, she stood near the back of the kitchen where it all began. The same light filtered through the window, landing softly on the prep table. A new batch of trainees stood beside her, watching as she demonstrated how to label and store allergens properly. "Always respect the process," she said, writing clearly on the bin. "Not because someone is watching, but because you care about the people who will eat what you make. A kitchen runs on trust, not just skill." The young cooks nodded, taking notes. One of them asked, "Did you ever mess up like that before?" Naomi smiled. "I've been blamed for things I didn't do, and I've made mistakes that were mine. Both teach you something, how to stay honest and how to keep going." When the session ended, she washed her hands, hung her apron, and stepped outside. The late afternoon sun painted the sky in shades of gold and soft pink. Across the street, the community center's door swung open and a few children ran out laughing, the same place where she once took that free safety class that started it all. Naomi crossed the road slowly and looked through the glass. Inside, a new flyer hung on the wall. Community kitchen. Free classes for anyone who loves to cook. At the bottom of the page, in small print, it read, "Coordinator, Naomi Tran." Her throat tightened. She hadn't expected it to mean so much, but seeing her name there felt like closing a circle she didn't even know she'd drawn. Later that evening, Ethan stopped by the center, still in his chef's coat. He leaned against the doorframe and smiled. "You did it," he said. Naomi laughed softly. "I'm still doing it." He nodded. "That's even better." They stood for a moment in the doorway, watching the last bit of sunlight fade beyond the buildings. The hum of the city felt softer, kinder. Naomi glanced at him and said, "You ever think about how one small act can change everything?" Ethan smiled. "Every day." As he left, she turned off the lights, locking up for the night. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass door. Not the girl who once begged for a job, but a woman who'd learned what it meant to believe in herself even when no one else did. She whispered, almost like a prayer, "It wasn't luck, it was grace." And maybe it was, because sometimes life doesn't hand you miracles. It hands you moments. Chances disguised as ordinary days, people who see what others don't, and the courage to start again even when the world has turned its back. Naomi smiled to herself and began walking down Colfax Avenue, her footsteps steady, the night lights flickering softly around her. Her story wasn't about wealth or rescue. It was about quiet strength, earned peace, and the beauty of a second chance. Her story reminds us that the smallest act of courage can change a life, maybe even your own. When everything seems lost, sometimes all you need is to take one honest step forward. Do you believe that a single moment of kindness can rewrite someone's entire story? Thank you for watching, and see you again on Power and Karma.